This conference will now be recorded.
That's good. Glad to see you here. Well, we're all breaking down. Just older in the body. Yeah.
You don't even need no.
Now I gotta write. Good to see you. Migraines.
Randy, ready? Call the meeting to order. Stand for the pledge.
To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh Lord, as we gather this day to do the important business of the people of the village of Owego, grant us wisdom, compassion, and understanding. Amen. All right, first section, as usual, is public comment.
Thanks for your time, everybody. Christine Curtis here to represent the Tioga County Industrial Development Agency regarding our project supporting Owego Gardens 2, the new development of 93 units of housing across the bridge up the hill from 434. Seeking your consideration later on your agenda when you discuss the Belleville-Lockwood Road dedication and setting up a public hearing to consider the same thing. Just here to shed some light on a few things discussed with the mayor and the attorney last week. Thank you for your participation in that investigative meeting. So a couple just facts to share with you all. If you are to take over that public roadway, it will not cost you any additional funding for hydrant maintenance. We confirmed with Veolia that the tariff states the village pays $30,739 semi-annually for all fire protection hydrants within the village, and any hydrants picked up from Belleville-Lockwood Road will be included in that payment that you already pay, so there'll be no additional cost there. Another thing I just wanted to share for all of your information is the pilot payment schedule. Starting in year 1 is estimating a village disbursement of $13,484. That will increase over the lifespan of the pilot, ending in roughly $23,946. So these estimates are based on the assumption that all tax rates would increase 2% annually. As we know, they don't all increase at exactly 2%, but it's a really good estimate. So that's the amount you can expect to receive annually between $13,484 and $23,946 for the life of that. So I'm hopeful that can be considered as a contribution to any road maintenance in the winter time, etc. And given that this is a brand new constructed road, it won't need redo of roadway or asphalt or any such maintenance for estimated 25 to 30 years. So just hoping you can take that into consideration. Additionally, this project, we're really happy we were able to bring 93 units to the village. There's already a waiting list of 140 hoping to get in there eventually. So that just shows the dire need for such a development. We're grateful to the village planning board and code officials for all of their input to date. They really helped us determine what type of lights the village would require. They helped us determine the correct width of the roadway to fit village standards. And so I'm just here to thank the village for their partnership along the way to date and hope that can continue to the end. Thanks very much. And we have a few more people associated with the project to also share some facts. Are there any questions you may have?
I guess one I would have is, if we do not approve taking over the road, what's plan B?
We don't have a plan B. From the beginning, when this was approved by the planning board, the plans did call this out as a public village roadway, and it was approved as such. So frankly, we're taken back by the potential that that may not happen. Excuse me, and that would present a lot of issues regarding the water company taking over the water tank system that the IDA constructed to support this development and potential future developments up the hill. So we're very much depending on the village.
Who's in charge of that road now?
I'm sorry?
Who's in charge of that road now?
Right now, Home Leasing, the developer, has taken ownership of it in the expectation that that was a temporary ownership. So it currently is their property. Although the IDA has constructed the water tank and the water main underneath the roadway. So it's been a joint effort. Any other questions I might be able to shed light on?
Well, previously, there was concern about drainage of water going down to 434. Has that all been taken care of?
It has, and I'll defer to the engineer for the project to take on that expertise of his. So let me get him.
So my name is Jamie Gansel with Fagan Engineers. I've been working on the project since 2016. So I'm probably between Chris and I, we have the most background on the project, going through the process, the review process, the approval process, and the design and construction. Just a little, take it a little bit back. This is actually essentially two different projects. There's the residential project, which is the home leasing piece. And then there's the public water system, which is the IDA piece. The IDA received funding from the state to build this water tank and system, not just for the home leasing project, but to stabilize the water system as a whole on that side of the road. The Halstead development is actually a bigger user of this system than the proposed Owego Gardens 2. Also, this provides more fire protection. 74% of this new tank is actually fire protection for that side of the river. So it was approved by the state for funding as a public facility. So as we went through the process of designing the subdivision and the site plan and the water system as three pieces, this was all developed in accordance with all the rules from Owego, from the planning board, and from the state on their funding side. So as we move forward with the water system design, that was the basis of the design, is that it's not just for this project. To be honest, we could have done a much cheaper water system if it was just for their project. It would have been probably about a third of the cost. But the whole intent was that this project was going to help stabilize that system as a whole. From the stormwater piece, there are some improvements that still need to happen. As we went through construction, this stormwater system was designed for mitigation of the full project up the hill. There's a whole underground system underneath that parking lot. I don't know if you guys know that, but there's a big stormwater basin underneath the full parking lot on the upper piece on the private property. That takes care of the mitigation for that system. During construction, as we built down through there, we're building through a wetland. There's some springs that pop up. And that's part of the process. There's a couple more improvements that are going to be done. We've actually, I believe our stormwater engineer worked directly with the village and home leasing on some improvements for that. Those still need to be implemented. Those will need to be implemented as part of the dedication process. Part of that is including diverting all of that runoff into the Owego Gardens storm system. Not a direct.
Who's responsible for that?
Oh, the home leasing is doing this construction. This is part of, so home leasing is responsible for the construction of the roadway up to the extension of Belleville Lockwood, up to the turnaround, the hammerhead turnaround at the top. That's been constructed in accordance with the the regulations with one variance about the slope, going to 12% slope. That was approved by the planning board in conjunction with, working with DPW superintendent at the time. That road construction is being certified by Fagan Engineers, being constructed in accordance with the plans and specs that were approved. But we need to get this last stormwater piece as part of that. It's really not stormwater, it's a spring, but let's call it stormwater. So we're going to install, and I don't know if we have a schedule yet for that, but that is the final piece of the construction of the road. So that is part of on the home leasing project. That it's not anything we're asking the village to take care of. Any questions on the design side?
I'm assuming that you've done all of this, tests and stuff and studies in the summertime, springtime. You know what happens in the wintertime in that area?
With regards to what?
Snow, ice, and that hill there, right? Turns into like a 3-peak mountain. There's nothing to stop those cars from coming down. There's no guardrails or something.
Right, that's why the road does need to be maintained.
Just like maintain, I mean, we're gonna keep the cars on the road.
If it's plowed and salted and maintained, that's what we're saying.
Plowing is not gonna keep the cars on, I mean, there's no rails up there, right? There's no railing. There's nothing to stop a car from going down except for a ditch. A kid might be happy with that, coming down in the sled, but not somebody coming down in an SUV or a regular car, coming down sideways.
12% slope is an acceptable slope under ASHTO standards.
Acceptable where?
There's tons of roads that are 12%.
Really?
Yes. I mean, that's what, this is, I guess, this is part of the discussion during the planning board process with the superintendent, Jeff Souls at the time. We went through that whole design. I mean, the design of this road was approved by the village, separate officials, the planning board, the ZBA, and your superintendent. At this point, it's constructed in accordance with those plans.
Anybody else got anything to add to that?
You have any questions on it, Brett?
I have a lot of questions. I guess I can't tell you what's underneath it. I've never seen it. Do I agree it's too steep? Absolutely. I mean, I've got to dedicate guys there at all times to maintain that road because it's so steep. I mean, there's no guardrails on it. What about people walking? There's no sidewalks or dedicated area for them to walk.
That was part of the review process. I mean, we're at the 11th hour of the construction being complete, and we're at the dedication. I can only certify to what was approved, and that it was constructed in accordance with those drawings.
Safety is a big concern. Maybe you should come and visit us when there's snow on the ground.
I've been here. I live down the street. I live in Elmira. I mean,
Myra's not here.
I don't believe me, we get a lot less
On a
snow.
morning where it just when it's dumping and people are screaming that the snow piles haven't come.
Believe me, I understand that.
The question comes down to ownership. Are we legally obligated? If we're not, I would be a hard no on this. I don't know if we are, I haven't seen the paperwork. I mean, that just seems like a huge liability for the village, the way it is. And you gotta see the checklist that Fred has given us, or some of this came from you. Manhole covers that aren't
Yeah.
great. And
The manhole covers, they're not with the slope of the road. So anytime you're plowing back up it, over time here shortly, you're gonna be banging them and cracking all that. They're not a slope at all. They're not with the road, my concern.
just as a private resident, it looks like a driveway to me. There's a gate down at the bottom. It looks like private property.
Well, the gate is there for construction purposes until it's opened up as a public facility.
But the way I see it as a resident, it looks like a road to your castle. It's the way it looks to the people down there in the village.
It was a subdivision that was approved as a public
I
road.
understand the legalities.
Right, and I mean, this isn't something that we're just making up at the last minute.
No.
And it's got a public facility that has to be accessed by a public road. That's the big issue.
That's your contingent argument for this, us taking over this road, is that there's a public facility.
That's part of it, but I would say the subdivision process that we went through if this is not a public road, you created an illegal lot.
And close it down and buy it again.
Well, it's kind of,
$13,000 to $23,000 a year in taxes for that building, that barely covers 10 houses in the village. I mean, I am very hesitant to go far above and beyond for road maintenance for this.
is there a full letter of review?
As far as,
Have we been provided that?
this is just something that the DPW supervisor has written up as far as some of the, I'd be glad to give you a copy.
Oh, yeah, we definitely need, if we have, items to address as part of the process, we would like that. Now, what we're asking for at this time is not tonight approving this process. What we're asking you to do is open up a public hearing to discuss this at the next meeting. That's what we're seeking, and obviously, whatever input we can get, we want to take, because if there are issues with what's out there, we want to make sure we go through them and address them.
Definitely not opposed to apartment dwellings or anything of that nature, but we also have a very fixed income that we bring in from our tax base with a 52% nonprofit, which is wonderful to have,
Sure.
but a burden at the same time.
And that's the one benefit of getting some of these projects coming on board is that they go through the pilot process. Yes, you get a certain number of dollars. We need, if those number of dollars have an issue, there might be some recourse. I don't know. That's not me. I'm an engineer, not an IDA lawyer. But let's go through and see if there's, from a maintenance point of view, that's why Christine brought up the issue of the hydrants. You're not going to incur any additional costs from the hydrants. What you are incurring is the cost of maintenance of the road.
Which could be detrimental in certain, which, I mean, that's something we have to consider.
Yeah, no, and I think if there's an estimate of that cost, it's something to be discussed. I agree.
Was the emergency access road put in, discussed that further? As far as going from the hall side development in?
Back during the approval process, yeah, we discussed that a number of times. The problem was there was a sliver of land that was not owned or under control by IDA or home leasing that prohibited. So if you look at the drawings, you'll see this weird notch in the parcel that is owned by, and I can't remember the property owner's name off the top of my head, but there was a discussion. We were looking at the townhome pieces, looking at extending the roads from there, but that just didn't work.
We also looked at going the opposite way,
Over
back
the hill.
over the hill.
Yeah,
We explored a
that
lot
as
of
well.
options, yeah.
Now, part of the reason why we did fall back onto the slope of the 12% was, or the main reason is because of the wetland. That really limited how much, our original design had more of an S curve. We couldn't do that. We tried, Army Corps would not allow the permitting of that. So, we only had a finite amount of acreage that we could impact as part of a residential development. Actually, that's part of the permit says it's a public road. So, when we went to Army Corps, they allowed us a certain amount of disturbance, which you actually paid for. I think we, whatever the acreage is, we had to double that and buy and build wetlands elsewhere to accommodate that.
So how close to the road is wetland?
The wetlands right up to the edge of the right of way, the 50 foot.
From the road?
From
Measure
the
out?
road itself, I would have to, the measurement,
Center
the drainage ditches are outside,
They're outside
they're not wetland.
That's another question to be answered. But my question is about DEC, salt. Anything to that effect of DEC? It's a wetland.
The DEC is actually not involved because it's an Army Corps wetland. But also Army Corps and DEC did do a joint permit for this project, so they reviewed it and they understood that the design, that it was gonna be a road that's maintained. They knew that's.
You have that written.
We have a lot of.
I'm just asking because.
Not, maybe the salt specifically, I don't know, but it's, they know it's gonna be a maintained road.
Well, that's something we need to know, because we're gonna be salting that road very heavily if they do take it over.
Sure.
I need to know that.
Oh, I'm pretty sure we can get something.
I'm just saying, because if they come knocking on our door, it's in a wetland. For every acre you destroy, you gotta put in 2 other acres.
Right.
So I just want.
And we've already destroyed that wetland in that right away.
I
We've taken
understand
that out.
I want something saying I'm not gonna get in trouble.
Yeah.
There's a lot of salt that's gonna be on that road.
Rusty?
Knowing Halsted, knowing the Owego Gardens 1, knowing one of the reasons that some of these things get built in the village is because it's considered walkable, or they don't get the grants to build them. So how are we gonna get the bicycles and baby strollers and wheelchairs down that 12% road? Wheelchairs, 12%.
We know how they're gonna come down.
Is that part of, is 12% wheelchair number?
No, ADA is 5%. So
somebody
you
wants to come down
wouldn't
that
be able
road-
to do that on a lot of your roads.
What's that?
You wouldn't, a lot of the Halsted development is not considered ADA as well.
Thank you for the least common denominator, no good.
But no,
we're
just-
talking about this one. We're not talking about something else.
This was reviewed based on those, what requirements we had to follow by multiple state agencies.
So,
HCR being one of them.
so someone thinks that that's okay to have 12% of the potential of, I don't know if anybody up there in this development have a wheelchair for all kind of folks that we're gonna put in there, but it was decided that was okay, that was gonna be walkable and wheelchairable.
That it was not necessary to make it ADA accessible. That's what was determined.
Okay.
That is good. I mean, there's, whether it's ADA, there's tons of roads around that are greater than 5%. 5% is ADA.
For years, you're talking about a brand new construction right now, so you can't compare apples and oranges.
No, believe me, I've built a lot of projects.
Well, you're trying to compare apples and oranges, comparing to other roads that
No,
are.
no, what I'm saying is that the ADA is not a requirement for a roadway. It is
But
not.
when they sold it to us as a walkable place, it seemed like sidewalks would be an impeding factor. And I
It
understand
is
this-
walkable interior to the site. I don't remember us saying that there was gonna be a,
Every time
ADA
the
sidewalk.
IDA comes and sells us one of these, it's about the walkability factor, and how people can walk to the village and do their shopping and whatever else. And I understand there's been meetings with other entities of the village, and the irony is not lost on me, if I can say that much.
from a funding point of view, some of these agencies, and I don't know if it's necessarily this one, do look at walkability, but more of those senior projects. And then when, this is not a senior project, actually, I don't even, the terminology for this project is
General occupancy.
general occupancy, so.
The requirements of the financing are, for ADA is a certain percentage of units. It doesn't extend to, something like a public road. So
I understand
So
the
we-
lower portion is for the elderly, if I may.
Yes.
The original, yes. And then there's a section of townhomes that are ADA as well.
Yeah, so it's,
One building.
as part of the design, we designed a one-story townhome, essentially.
I apologize, you're dealing with a totally different board than you were, so
Right.
we're trying to play catch up here.
Exactly, that's why we're here to answer whatever questions we can.
The last I knew, we had to build a water tower because you didn't have the water for construction for any emergency situations. When Scott Tubbs was here, I believe was the code at the time, said you needed some kind of water supply or you couldn't build.
What that comment was originally, during construction, he wanted it, they stated that they needed water to be active in case there was a fire.
Right.
So we ended up having to bring, trucks in.
Right.
To provide emergency fire suppression if necessary, when there was lumber or whatever may be on site.
I didn't know what the conclusion was, I just know that was a talk in works.
Yeah, no, that was a push to, get the water tower done quickly so that it could be utilized for that reason, but, at some additional costs trucks on and made sure that we were doing what we were supposed to do.
Is that water tower active?
This is integral to the water tower, being active.
So
Is it active today?
No, it's not. There's water.
There's water in it. Unfortunately, that water is, going through the winter, and, it's not only do we want water so that we can, fill the units, but also to ensure that it's, the water tower remains safe and unharmed. Going back to your point, I think we've been working with the village, for 5 or 6 years now, so obviously a lot has changed, but, it's been a partnership the entire time. We all were in agreement that, a phase 2 additional units based on, how, the waiting list was and, phone calls you get that weren't seniors looking for a similar place to live. And, we all knew we wanted to do something. And in order to do so, it was integral that, home leasing, would be the developer. They wanted to bring more residents here. The IDA had to chip in and build a water tower, which I'm sure is way out of the normal purview of the IDA. And then, from the village perspective, was ultimately taking dedication of the road. So it's always been kind of in the plan that, in order to have a project at all, those three things kind of had to work in tandem with each other.
Seemed like if there was a definitive, we would not be here having this discussion. I mean, honestly, if there was hard black and white, there's no reason for you to be here for this dedication, it would be ours.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the conundrum comes in.
I think part of that is when the dedication for Owego Gardens took place. I mean, this is how it happened, right? So this is the process that we went through. That is why we're here today, and it might feel like it's kind of out of the blue, but we're just kind of going by what we did and what was done originally for that first smaller dedication.
Usually, when you're doing the final dedication, it's more just a pro forma. At that point, the planning board's approved things, that the superintendent approved things. You've had enough discussions with the village or town that you're working with that it's usually I'm not at a meeting to dedicate a road over. Usually for a subdivision where it's okay, Fagan, did they build it correctly? Yep, we certified, we saw this. We can confirm that. We provide the as-built drawing, and then it's something that's voted at the board meeting, usually not with an engineer presenting. So I understand it's been a long process. Like I said, my job number is 2016. I've been working on this site since 2016.
Isn't it important for the engineer to be there? There's a lot of stuff that's missed.
Well, I don't know what you're saying is missed. So I haven't received that list. Well, if you would like me to go through the list, I would love to. But I mean, there might be items on that list that aren't on the drawings, but that's something that
So railings, the walkway.
There were no guardrails required under the original approved drawings. There were no sidewalks as part of the drawings.
I mean, at the time.
So I certified that they were.
This was all looked at. I mean, we live in a society of safety now. I mean, people sue for hot water in their coffee cup.
Yep.
So we live in a society like that. So we're looking at this with fresh eyes.
Sure. I mean, it hasn't changed that much since we had the approval. It's 2018, but 2018 got approved. But if there's stuff that's requested above and beyond what we recently approved, let's see it. I haven't seen that list, is what I'm saying. If the manual is
not
not
much of a list, it's common sense stuff.
common sense, but you're talking about a project that went through 2 years of reviews and approvals with the planning board, that none of these items were brought up at that time.
I can't see how.
So you were saying prior to that the road was supposed to have windy and twisty roads?
Yeah.
And then it got shut down?
Yeah.
So did anybody here at the village know that it had a 12% grade now?
Yeah, it's in your approvals.
It's on that.
The planning board actually had to give a special dispensation for that.
And they agreed for the 12% grade.
Yes, and that was based on the superintendent at the time approving it. I wouldn't go against your rules without talking.
I wasn't here, so let's.
Yeah, I know. And that's the problem. We feel that, you know, this communication over that time period has been, you know, gone through different people. That's what, you know, that's why I'm here tonight, is if any of this stuff.
Can't believe you let 12% grade go. That's- Yeah, that's
But
pretty.
you put ice on that and
There are multiple towns and villages in our area, or mostly towns, that have 12% or greater slopes.
12%.
Yes.
I've never seen one, I guess, because we're in California.
Yeah, Ashton,
Well, that's.
it is value of words.
Wow.
Rusty's here.
Yeah.
So, who owns this project?
So, but as I mentioned, there's two separate projects. The project for the road is under home lease.
Okay.
The water system is the IDA.
So that's it, there's two separate projects.
Yes.
Well, what about the buildings, are they not part of the project?
Well,
Sorry, I'm sorry, but yeah, who owns the project, who owns the building, not who owns the water tower, who owns the building?
the buildings are owned by home lease.
Only, okay, so is there a reason other than home leasing's financial interest why they would want the village to have this particular road driveway rather than them?
One is they're not, in theory, they're not allowed to have this water system on a private drive. This water system would not have been approved without a public road. I mean, we have funding from multiple state agencies that this is how it's been presented the whole time, that we had to provide our approvals to show that we can move forward with the project. I mean, we would have designed a water system just for them, which, like I said, actually, I find the numbers, but the water tank is only maybe 15% for them. 74% of it's for firefighting for the whole area. And then the rest is to provide feeding back to the Halstead development instead of it being on a pump system. Right now, your Halstead development is supply water by a pump. And if those pumps go down, you have issues, and you've had issues. That's why there's a water tank. The IDA was able to leverage this project and the development on that site and your need in the Halstead development to fund a much larger water system improvement. I mean, the biggest benefiter of all of us is Veolia is getting a beautiful $1.2 million water tank. That's another story altogether. But that's the.
I'm trying to recall the village going to anybody and saying, we need more water up in Halstead. I'm trying to recall this with my weak little brain.
And we wouldn't, because we don't own the water system.
Yep, so it's very surprising to me, and nobody here can remember that the village went to anybody and said, we want a big water tank so we can have water, more water.
The residents were, it's my understanding, were seeking a more safe system. This is going back to 2015.
Yeah,
I mean, some of the grant process for that grant states that. It brings Halstead development into that discussion.
Once again, village wasn't involved with any of that.
It's still village property. The village residents that are benefiting from a system.
We just changed it to the benefiting it to, what I'm asking about is whether they were involved in it, whether they asked for it, whether they wanted it, as opposed to whether they could benefit.
Was the village government officials involved in that process? I don't know. That was before my time.
I have another quick question. It's odd for me, I'm a process guy, why things are done in a particular order. It's odd for me that all this gets done before the village government has decided that they will take over this road. It's odd to me that all of it's going to get done, and then at the very end, we're going to say, now we take over that road, instead of the very beginning. We're not going to do any of this till you take over that. It's just an odd set of things. That's all just formal. All that's just all automatically. I don't get that. why you don't have that duck in order first?
Yeah, I think a lot of that is the precedent that was set in the first dedication and following the same process. And I think that, as we design the project, a lot of coordination, making sure that the road was designed to the village's standards, working with the village to make sure that the lighting, was up to your guys' standards. I believe it went as far as the village applied or filed the paperwork to NICEAG in order to power the lights on the road. So the dedication itself might seem out of order, but the coordination that's been ongoing for several years has always included feedback from the village and the appropriate parties.
And it sounds like it's included an assumption that will be okay at the very end.
Yeah, but also it was a approved subdivision by a board and panel by the village board.
Yet nobody took ownership of this road. I mean, you've done a lot of work on this road, assuming it's a public road that apparently we have not taken ownership of in any capacity.
Well, that's the typical process, is that you won't own it until it's built and constructed.
It seems like we get something in writing saying we
Well,
will take it.
That's
I
the,
mean, it seems to me right now, you guys are going, oh crap, we don't have anything in writing.
well, we do have your approvals. We do have your planning board and ZBA approvals
You have
for.
a contract is my question. Approvals, I mean, is all, we can look through the minutes, but unless there's something hard, black and white, we still have to make a decision.
Sure. Sure, it becomes a real conundrum, because, like I said, your planning board has approved a system of, this is how we do it. It's the Wheel Gardens one has a portion of that, you actually do own a road there. There is a Belleville Aqua.
Yeah, and the original dedication.
No, there is.
There is.
There is.
100 feet of it.
Yeah, and that original dedication was done, knowing, hoping that the second phase would come to fruition and that road would ultimately get extended.
So I want to correct some numbers, just so for that water tank, just so we know what the volumes are. So 74% of the volume is fire protection, 26% of it's for water usage. 45% of that is Halsted area, 25% is the home leasing buildings, all of them. And then 30% is for future development, expansion of your system down, where in your system. So I just wanted to give you guys those real numbers in case I get quoted back later. I was doing that from memory. Sorry.
Say them again, would you?
So, 74% is fire protection.
Yep.
So then there's 26%
Yep.
left for usage,
Yep.
daily usage. 45% of that 26%
Yep.
is the Halsted area.
So that's around 12% of the total. I got it.
25% is home leasing, and then 30% is extra freeboard that you guys can use, or anyone can use as they come online. So if you have any other construction on that area, or if demand increases for some reason at an existing building or such.
Okay, yeah, that tells me that 26% was for use and 45% of that 26 was for Halsted, which is about 12% of the whole thing was for Halsted. I got it. That's why we voted that way.
Yeah, there's 129 homes in the Halsted neighborhood that utilize roughly 43,000 gallons per day.
Thanks.
And kind of going back to the whole purpose of the project is, the whole idea is that Tyler County as a whole and Owego in general, needed more options for residential. That's where, that's part of what I was tasked to look into different ideas. We've looked at multiple sites throughout the area, you only have so much land that you can actually build on.
And I think one of the biggest things was that, and why would you go up a hill if you don't have to, it's out of the floodplain, which, when Owego 1 was done, that, all that flooding had just occurred, and, there was a need for more housing outside of that floodplain, so that if it happens again in the future, you have residential, apartments that are safe.
I mean, if y'all recall that back a number of years ago, FEMA wanted to change our floodway mapping tremendously. That was part of this discussion too, because what would have happened is a large portion, this goes all the way to up in Owego, all down through our river basin, a lot of our residential areas would then be defined as more floodplain, floodway. At the time, Congressman Reed fought that for us, kept that from coming true. They are looking at that stuff again. They are bringing up FEMA mapping. I know Tompkins County is going through that right now, that a large portion is now, of their land is now getting pushed back on what is considered residential usage. So, I mean, that kind of goes back to what Chris,
We were strongly involved after the flood, with the committee from our community with FEMA, studied all that. The original plan here was to build Tidal Gardens 1, and then to build the next step of it, the next place up the hill, and then maybe some more places up. And they couldn't do it because of wetland and DEC, and so they had to do it on the top because they weren't allowed to do it where it would be, other than wetlands, it would be practical to put it right above one, and we wouldn't be having this talk about this, would we? But we couldn't do that.
No.
And
We tried.
yeah, whether we should.
There was Clean Water of the United States ruling that kind of, the discussion of what is considered navigable waters, it's getting kind of a little crazy on the Army Corps side. That slowly got taken away and then came back again, but it changes every administration.
One thing, as beginning of this project, there were neighbors that were concerned about flooding that was coming down the hill.
Mhm.
Now, if that is not taken care of, what is the recourse for the village as far as?
So we diverted so part of the water tank project was actually to divert a large chunk of, we call it the intermittent stream. We actually had to get a stream permit for this. We brought it back into this underground system that's underneath the parking lot that diverts it to east.
Yeah, east to west.
Yeah, east. To the east, on the opposite side of the road from the people that were being impacted. Now, this additional work that we're doing as part of the final stormwater improvements, that is to also help with that. But there's the large majority of that water now is either going into the wetland to be absorbed back into the wetland on the east side of the road. And then this new piece that we're going to be adding to take off the springs is going to go into the basin, also the existing basin of Owego Gardens 1, that's east of the road as well. If you notice, that basin doesn't get utilized much at all during major storms. So we Hagen engineers designed a way to get some more water away from that intersection to get over to that side. So as a recourse though, is as part of the project, they have to maintain, they received a Speedy's general construction permit that says that we gotta, this thing's gonna perform in this manner. And there's an operation and maintenance agreement that the home lease will operate and maintain the system for perpetuity. As part of
Okay,
that
so
project.
if it fails, it's up to the home leasing company.
Yeah, to fix their system, yes. It's
Okay.
If you, I don't know, we can provide some pictures and stuff. There's a large storm basin underneath that road, that parking lot. It's pretty significant.
So we're talking like drywall scenario, or what is the?
Chambers, glorified septic system. You know how like those little septic system ones?
Yeah.
Ours are like this. They're big orange. I can't think they're like this. Maybe they're like this. But they're big orange chambers.
They slowly leach into the grounds.
Yeah, and then the discharge point is east of the road, going back to the wetland, not west of where that ravine is, where the one neighbor I spoke to in town.
Right.
Owego Gardens 1 east of that road, aren't you jeopardizing that potentially?
No, because the wetland acts as the one nice thing about the wetland is it acts as a big sponge that and retention basin that slowly discharges as well. And we do After Owego Gardens 1 was originally built, there's definitely some issues. We actually came in and did some more improvements before Owego Gardens 2, when we were doing our initial designs, because we were seeing some water erosion coming down the side there. So there's some been additional structures added in there to capture that water, to make sure it gets caught and bring it to the front basin. That front basin was dry all the time. I mean, it really wasn't receiving anything at all. Yeah, that's his name, Kurt. Yeah, so I met with him a number of times and.
Wash up the house.
Thank you.
All right, so the decision tonight is just whether we schedule a public hearing for next meeting.
Mayor, if I can, I mean,
Yeah.
I know, of course, home leasing would like to have the process move forward, but I know that Brett has mentioned some things that he'd like possibly proposed as addressing. I'm just trying to think, would it be more beneficial if they have an opportunity to put something together to suggest, you know, and I don't recall exactly what the application materials have, but insofar as there's conditions or additional modifications or whatever those things might be, that they can say, okay, we're going to do X, Y, and Z to mitigate 1, 2, 3, ABC, whatever, and then have that as the plan that the public hearing is on, instead of holding a public hearing, then having the plan change in response to, you know, what's just happened tonight, for example, because otherwise you'll have at the public hearing potentially a plan that's different than what has been presented, insofar as any changes or modifications or conditions might be proposed by home leasing in response to the board's feedback tonight.
Rusty?
As you know, my opinion about process, public hearing should happen after we've done all our research, we have everything where we want it to be, we're in fairly good agreement on what we want to do, and then we're going to ask the public what they think about that. We are not that place in this process. I'm not prepared to have a public hearing.
I'd be in agreement with Rusty. This is kind of we kind of knew this was coming, but this is like, here it is, now make a decision. I would think we'd rush a little too much. The things that we do sometimes, I'd really like to think this through.
We also don't have to schedule a public hearing for the next meeting either. It could be a month from now.
Do that when we're prepared.
With all due respect, I would request a lot of partnership in that interim, right, so that we could stay in communication, get to an end result. Home Leasing submitted their request for public hearing on November 23rd. Here we are in January with no action by this board, and that's part of why we attended here, to try to seek your attention to this frankly urgent matter as far as it impacts our project.
This is the first time I, as a trustee, have heard about you requesting any kind of public hearing. So, I mean, whoever dropped the ball on that, I apologize, but I was not aware that you did this months ago.
Well, it wasn't quite months ago.
What did you say?
Yeah, I mean, we got the packet of information, the way the board meeting scheduled out, got on this agenda.
I'm curious what public hearing would look like. Is it going to be all 140 people that want to move there, or are we going to have village residents here trying to?
Shows up on
I always find that interesting, and as somebody who doesn't have a stake in the game other than a place to live. That is neither here nor there. We'll find out when the time comes.
Let me say, do we have any other public comment? Before I close that. All right.
Jacob, what was your last name?
Gensel, I'll give you, or G-E-N-S-E-L.
And we'll go to the discussion on Ben Lockwood notice dedication. Since we're already.
That's where we're going. That's where we're going.
If I could just, one last time, respectfully ask, for your guys' consideration tonight. It's a very integral piece to turning this project over and allowing residents, to occupy the building and not have, 93 perfectly good apartments sitting vacant any longer than they really have to. So I echo Christine's sentiment and ask that, you consider it.
And respectfully, again, just so all newer serving members are aware, we have been in communication with, the village attorney back, years ago. We have records of emails from 4 years ago asking what would the process be once we got here. And we followed all advice provided, and now we're here just asking to finalize what was always the plan from the start of project approval and the start of construction.
To clarify, everybody has been on this board at least 4 years, and we're not new at this. I mean, we at least 4 years have been on this board.
But none of us accepted the first road.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't believe I accepted the pilot for this one either, but
No, we did
it
not.
gets pushed through.
Rusty?
Oddly enough, I was here and I was at village board meeting, not on the village board, when this project was discussed and when that road was discussed. So this is way back in the beginning of this, and there was a strong feeling on the village board that they did not want to have possession of this road. And there was strong discussion, and they did not at that time, they had the opportunity at that time to say that they would do it, and they did not say that they would do it at that time. And I was there, and I know exactly who was there and what was said.
Yeah.
So,
Here too.
In the audience, but not on the board.
it's just an odd little bunch of stuff.
When the applicant presented something to the village board, they don't recall that, to be honest.
What's that?
When the applicant presented to the village board, we received pushback.
I cannot recall who presented it. It could have been the IDA, it could have been,
I don't
it very likely was, but it was when it was said, we want to build this road, we want it to be a village street, and the village said, we don't really want to do that, and then it was said, oh, well, you have to do it because, you can't have a driveway coming all the way down into the 434, because there's already another driveway there, they won't let you have two driveways. So I remember exactly, because we were part of that discussion. Doesn't matter, that's unimportant.
No, I just.
But I'm just telling you that this idea that everybody has been on board from this from day one is not necessarily so. Okay. I'm not prepared to have a public hearing on this yet. Ron's not prepared to have a public hearing on this yet. Anybody over there prepared to have a public hearing on this yet? Doesn't sound like a motion for public hearing at this time is going to be forthcoming.
Well, I think that our DPW and emergency services should review this before we have a public hearing.
I believe Chief Morris was still waiting for word on the access road. The last time I talked to you.
Yeah, well, they just said they couldn't do it.
That would have been something nice to know when they realized they couldn't do it. Maybe told the right see.
No, I'm sorry, that was part of the review process. I mean, this is a recent request.
I'm sorry, I'm actually talking to him. I don't know if you had the information or not. I'm asking if he was notified by whomever the power be that it was not approved.
I turned it over to Toby.
What'd you say, Jim?
Code issue with the planning board at the time.
Oh, I'm misinterpreting what you were requesting. I'm sorry. You're talking about the road behind the building.
Yes.
Okay, that's a difference.
That's their.
Yeah, that's a difference.
Sorry.
Sorry.
We're okay with the plans that submitted for camera fire access concerns.
Yeah, so let me amend what I was talking about. I was talking about connection to the Halsted development. So it was a different.
Well, different discussion, two different.
Yeah.
Another thing.
Sorry about that.
Another road.
Misinterpretation, my part.
Grove Street extension connection, remember that. One last question before we move along. Is that water tank on village property, or is it partially on town property?
It's town property.
100% town property.
Okay, thank you.
That causes issues with Veolia.
Yep.
There was some, we actually went through a process for that. There was a whole
Yeah, I
other
know.
piece that we had to go through.
But just because it's in the town and they don't have permission to operate in the town.
And the reason why we had to put it up there was actually to provide for that whole service area. It's all based on elevation.
So I guess I do have a question. What, you mentioned that the apartments are done-ish. And you have a waiting list of 140 people for 90 apartments. What's stopping you from putting people in the apartments?
We haven't run water yet. We have to run the water from the water tank, make sure that, there's no leaks in any of the buildings, and, make sure that we have a functioning water system, before you move anybody in. I don't think you couldn't give us a C of O until we have water.
And the water system is actually, the tank and the water main going up the hill are shut off from the water system. They are not connected right now. There's a physical valve closed. So the Veolia will not open that up until this is resolved.
So you don't even know if it works?
Well,
Oh,
so
we know.
the IDA has jumped through a lot of hoops in the last few weeks to come up with a temporary solution with Veolia, so that they're hopeful they can start operations next week. Home leasing will be able to test their final, fully constructed units, have the CFO, and start leasing sooner than our anticipated public takeover of that roadway.
Typically,
But it took a lot of last minute switch of plans and partnership just to try to solve this problem, resulting from what we didn't anticipate was any consideration as to not taking the roadway. So we have come up with a temporary solution, but we're hopeful they can lease sooner than, next month.
typically you would have water, have access to water during construction. So before you drywall everything in, you run water and make sure that, I was speaking more to the apartments, that you don't have leaks before you drywall everything in. We've actually done all that, so that's a risk that was taken, hoping that, we don't have any surprises. But you would normally do that earlier on, before drywalling all the plumbing in. It's just standard for any, apartment complex. You run water before you get rid of your access.
So you got a structure with no walls, just
No, they're wall.
pipes and,
It's done. I'm saying normally what you.
so it's done, but you didn't test the water?
So
Because I'm losing
let me,
something.
the water main and water tank have been third-party tested already and has been approved by the Tyler County Health Department as being acceptable. So the
So
water
the tank
system,
works, but does it work going through the pipes?
the water main pipe up, the public water main, the 12-inch main going up the hill, is all publicly, it's been tested and certified. That's completely fine. It's the internal plumbing that he's talking about inside the building that needs to be energized, and if there's an issue like a leak, in your little 3/4-inch pipe, that's what they would have to look at.
And that's not the last minute and everything else is done and then
Well,
figure all that stuff out when it comes to it?
the problem is we can, the whole discussion of, from Veolia's point of view of letting us utilize the water system in advance to operating it. So that's where Christine was making comments about. Veolia's looked at another way of allowing us to utilize the system, and hopefully that happens next week. That is my understanding. But from a public water supply, it is shut off. Right now, there's a water main in the ground and a water tank up there with water in it. That's just the water from the testing system. It's not supplying the fire protection to the Homestead development right now. They have to run their pumps. The pump system has to work. That's what Homestead is on right now.
This is winter time, what happens to water? that just stayed in the pipes? You know how the temperature went down to like below Arctic weather?
Yeah.
Yeah, the water main's under frost depth, but the water tank is a concern, because the water tank did have some ice on it, and we're inspecting that tomorrow with, the installer to make sure that.
I mean, I like to find things before they happen. Last week, my power steering went out. And right in the middle of me driving. If that ever happened to you, you know what I had to go through. Wish I knew beforehand that was gonna happen before I halfway to work.
Got a little more exercise.
Yeah, all of this hurts now. But, yeah, so before these people who's on the waiting list is getting an apartment.
Yeah, and that's the thing, it's the waiting list, it's the waiting list until we're able to occupy it.
I mean, in a perfect world, it would have been done prior to all this, right? It was not the plan to have the two projects wrap up at the same time. But that's just how it unfortunately played out. I don't think anyone wanted to be at a point where you have buildings sitting there, without water.
Our original construction deadline would have completed that tank quite a while back. We've had various delays, resolved them all now, and are ready to put it in service.
So you do agree, not everything goes according to plan?
Not all.
Yeah.
Construction really does.
So is the water system already available to the buildings or not?
Yeah,
In
the
theory,
water
okay.
is to the building, it's just that it's shut off until next week.
And
It's on the wrong side of the village right now, Fran.
the system was air testers,
Okay.
so hopefully that get caught.
Air doesn't freeze. I mean, it does, but not in pipes.
Yeah, but air testing is a little more, actually, less forgiving than water testing. So it should be good. Hopefully.
Well, Mayor, I would encourage that we, set a hearing date for this. I mean, whether it be 6 weeks or 8 weeks or whatever, I think we should set a date.
It doesn't,
4, 6, 8, whatever.
I wasn't mine, so it doesn't hurt to set a date. If you have to move it, you have to move it.
How long?
I would set it, you don't want to do it the next meeting, give it 4 weeks. So, February?
Now, are we having
February 6th.
a meeting that,
I would say, well, the 20th is the President's Day. It'd actually be the 21st.
we have the non-com meeting, right?
Yeah, which is the 6th, actually.
Right, so we need to meet on Tuesday,
You're talking about January or February?
February.
That's a different discussion, but good.
That would be another month, yeah.
But I would set this maybe for the 21st, since the 20th is another holiday.
Maybe about 2 weeks.
It'd be a month, not very much. 2 meetings are done.
Okay.
February 21st. Yeah.
You have President's Day.
And then all these holidays on Mondays.
I know. Yeah, it needs to, we could have a committee, but between maybe DPW and fire and 2 of our trustees to work with these guys and make sure.
Are you able to unmute people on the?
No.
They cannot participate.
They can unmute themselves.
I mean, so they can speak,
Yeah,
they cannot participate.
they cannot.
Cannot.
They could. They can participate if they want. Same as these people got.
Okay.
They can participate, same as these guys got.
Yeah,
Well, I thought we were out of the public hearing.
We are, but that doesn't ever stop anybody.
I guess from
does DPW and the different department heads have any comment on when we should have a hearing? When they feel ready for it?
I think we should have the talking and amongst ourselves and what we feel.
A month?
I think it should be
Before,
you have it down.
Well, I mean,
Okay,
we
so,
also have to have some kind of a timeline.
that's,
Right.
that's what we agree with, you agree with
I
that,
still
right?
think that we all should discuss it before.
For
I agree with Rusty.
will the,
one,
So I'm not
two,
saying a month.
And
I'm not
we're
saying
doing
that.
I've been
1 month?
working with Jay to do a walk through there. Jay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I don't think we should keep these guys hanging forever. We need to set a date.
well, we were gonna do it next week, but we're gonna have to put it off. I mean, finding more information is good, but we need to put ourselves in a date too.
Right.
yeah, we have to rectify these issues.
Mr. Mayor, there's a presumption here that we will hold a public hearing.
Right.
When we find out more information, we may decide that we don't want a public hearing, that we're ready to do it, or we may decide we absolutely won't do it. So this idea that we have to hold a public hearing, we have to decide it right now, does not exist. We don't have to do any of that right now. We can set, next meeting, if we're in another place, we can set the public hearing. This idea that we have to set one right now, we gotta set it for a month and a half, we don't have to do any of that. And it may not, in my mind, that's still not the process. The process is when we're in the line, that's when we do it. My opinion.
My opinion.
Well, Rusty, we can always set a hearing, but we can then change it.
We could cancel it.
Right.
We don't wanna have it.
Just tell me what I think.
These types of
Presumptive.
responses to developers is likely making difficult enticing future developers. I hope that some of you have at least appreciation for the project itself, the added units for residents to live in a clean home that isn't outdated and is desirable and makes people stay here or move here or live here. And I think that these developers would greatly appreciate some consideration now and as we continue through this process to your end decision. And I hope that you can not take that the wrong way.
I appreciate that, but that's not the point. The village does encourage various projects. The village encourages projects with the IDA in the county. The village has helped put together numerous projects for housing. The village has encouraged this project up on the hill. The only thing we're talking about is this road. We're not talking about, but we want this because we want the project. The project's already built. We wanted it, you want it, everybody wants it, it's there. It's just about the road. It's not about discouraging a developer. It's not about any of that stuff. It's about the road.
I'll say that the reason the project exists was because ultimately this road was going to get dedicated. And I know that it sounds like an assumption now, but back in 2018, so this project doesn't get off the ground if that doesn't happen.
What's the price tag on this project?
What's that?
What's the price tag on this project? Public knowledge.
I have to look.
Give me a guess.
I know the water system's 1.2 million.
I know your estimate before all these COVID caused rise in prices was 26 million.
And COVID made it more.
And it's
Delays.
skyrocketed beyond.
Delays, supply, materials, labor.
So a $26 million project, that might be a $30 million project, was contingent on this road.
So the financing that we put together, and the mortgage that we get and the state agencies we work with, they, you put together an operating budget, right? And you do all those things, and this was one of those assumptions. And, this project doesn't generate a whole lot of anything because the goal is to keep these rents affordable for the people who are going to live there. So, this kind of partnership, along with things like a pilot, are the only way you keep rents affordable at projects like this.
So one of the things I'm gonna ask is for someone to come to us, not tonight, with some information about what the financial impact would be for leasing if this does not become a village street and it becomes their responsibility road, what their financial impact will be on that. I'd like to know that, to know how big a killer this is as a project. So if that, somebody come up with that if they can later. That'd be one of the pieces of research and information I'd like to know.
I'm like, what was it, we have a public hearing, in 4 weeks.
The first meeting in February?
First
Or the
meeting in
second?
February.
The first meeting in February or the second meeting? I'll give you a date.
For a date.
Well, I don't know if we're gonna have a meeting on Monday or Tuesday, then. It's gonna be 4 weeks.
Well, 4 weeks would be the second meeting.
President's Day falls on the 20th.
You guys might be away.
Right.
Right, that's what I'm saying, I think Tuesday, first Tuesday in February.
That's only if we change the meeting. Only 2 of us are away. They could still have the meeting without us.
It's not a leap year, so I don't get an extra day.
Let's just do the 21st to be.
No, you want to have a meeting without you.
I know, right? Let's just do the 21st to be safe.
Okay,
Then I
That
was-
was Tuesday.
February 21st. And that would give adequate time to look at different pros and cons. You know, I mean, it's not saying that agree on whether, you know, we adopt the road at that time, but that the public hearing, 21st of February.
Making that motion.
I'm making that motion.
Does anybody second that motion?
I'll second it. So it is written, so it shall be done.
So let's vote on that. We have public hearing 21st. Rusty?
No.
Laura?
No.
Rob?
No,
Fran?
Yes,
Charles?
Yeah, we always change the date.
And yes, so it ties, but it fails.
Once again, when we have some answers, we'll have, if it's appropriate, we'll have a public hearing.
I just don't want it to be
That,
2 years from
we're
now.
not
In
planning,
this case,
No,
there's
that's
one
right.
set up.
we're not planning to hold them up forever.
So we've received a complete list of comments,
You have not,
so this is what I need to address.
That's the beginning of the list of comments.
Hold on, when can we expect? And to be fair to the applicant, look, like I said, we did submit based on the project documents that were approved by the village. And we certify that it's built in accordance to that.
Maybe they should come when there's ice and snow on the road, so they can see what they are up against in the future before moving in. Especially your list of stands. And it's dangerous.
done what we've done in the first case.
nothing. All right, so we'll move on. I don't have a good answer for you. I'll try and push them to get a list.
Like I said, but the consistency in action is what we're just asking for. It's just a process that we can follow.
Contract is what I'm.
If we're talking process, what is the process?
well, I mean, with, the, you know, different department heads looking at what needs to be done. I mean, maybe in 2 weeks, we could set up a public hearing.
I already got voted
I
down.
mean, at that time, well, I'm
Well,
saying at that time,
well,
we could vote
we'll have to see.
on a public hearing.
We'll answer these comments for the next meeting.
Okay,
Thank you
thank you.
for your time.
Thank you. Sorry, it didn't go any smoother than I thought it would be.
We understand it's been a whole new, I mean, this has been a long process. from, we understand. We'll get your answers. Thank you.
Good New Year.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Department head,
Who's that?
Paul?
So, what confuses me about this is why the village road is holding up the water. But
That's privately owned, I don't know.
I don't know, I'm confused. It goes up to, it comes out of the village road or the state road. But not to hold up any more time, we were dispatched to 134 EMS calls. We provided 30 calls for mutual aid. I just received a report today from the county to compare our numbers. We're probably less than 10 or so roughly for mutual aids received. We had 41 volunteers responding to calls in December. We did a community CPR class for one of the local businesses for the employees, and mileages as listed below.
Anybody have any for EMS? I don't think you have anything on the agenda.
No,
so.
I think it's phenomenal the number of volunteers put in their time.
Couldn't do that.
Otherwise, thank you.
I don't know what we want to do.
I know, right? You're good? Tracy?
I'm with him, I'm confused why the village street has anything to do with a public or a private water system, sorry. I did want to mention that, operator trainee Justin, Paul Judson is starting his schooling tonight, to move forward to get his operator's license. The schooling that he's taking is a home study course, and so it's going to be drawn out over more duration. It's very, very difficult to get into Morrisville. We send a student there for 2-week classes and such. So he is starting that actually tonight as we're in this meeting. He's online doing that, his very first course. So looking to get him licensed as soon as possible. He's been here less than a year and he's already, enrolled doing it. So
What's his last name again, Tracy?
Bowen Judson, Bowen/Judson.
Bowen.
Bowen.
Bowen Judson, yeah. Thank you.
Other than that, the new pump for the pump station, the only other thing I had that's on the agenda. Should I mention I was waiting on a third quote at the last meeting, I received it, so.
Should we do that now?
Once I get the chat.
Kim didn't put that in there?
Oh, yeah, it was an attachment. H2O.
Yeah, it's W2O is the name of the company. The VO pump.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, so she did. She attached the,
Yeah, and that's
but she, I didn't.
the motion should say 5%.
I didn't catch it. She put it in there, so.
Oh,
She didn't do the money, did I care?
W2O.
Yeah, W2O.
So I move that we authorize the purchase of a Owego FA 10.51 submersible pump for Delphine Pump Station for $9,000 paid out of line item G.8130.20.130 from W2O.
Second.
Okay, any discussion on that? Rusty?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Brad?
Yes.
Charles?
Yes.
All right, anything else, Tracy?
That's all I have.
Jimmy? Any updates on reviewing my SOGs? Any updates on those?
Actually, oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead,
Because I'm looking
you read the Bible.
4,000 pages of it. I read it once and I started the line by line process of things that may not fit in an SOG that may be bylaw things and et cetera, so I will continue that.
You have a list of things?
I will.
Do you have any idea when we can be able to present that?
I do not.
And I sent you the letter and Nate the letter today that the rescue tools are not safe. Yeah, what do we need to do with that?
Yeah, so, are they not, so state bid means a particular thing, right? The New York State contract. They don't have a cooperative purchasing network that they work with. It's like, I mean, I just Googled it, like, seemed to find one, like, looked like it was down in, Texas. For TNT Rescue Systems, Inc. Now, that being said,
Same tool or not, you know, so.
well, usually the cooperative purchasing networks, they bid the catalog, so literally everything they sell.
Right, yeah, I know. The guy I talked to said he's been asked that question 100 times. He said that they talked to New York State about getting rescue tools on a purchasing program. As of now, all he could provide was that letter that I sent.
Yeah, is this the Jaws of Life then?
Yep.
Does anyone else make Jaws of Life?
Not this particular brand, and they're the only folks that sell it in New York State.
So there's other brands of Jaws of Life?
Correct.
So why this brand of Jaws of Life?
Because 2 other fire stations have it within our districts that we can, if something happens, we can swap out. So they're compatible tools.
You don't have to train people on multiple tool types, so you're standardizing to one particular brand.
Just like our air packs and the regulators and stuff like
So
that.
you can pass a resolution to standardize to a particular manufacturer of a item, and then from there, there's only one vendor regionally, locally authorized for it, so then you sole source purchase from that particular vendor. But, you know, if you could throw like, how urgent is this purchase right now? Or is this something you can wait till the next meeting for? Sure. Because then we can put some more formal resolutions together, just so that it's clear, you know, what the basis for it is, so that way it's very clear in the minutes too. And then I usually like to have from the department head, just like everything that you just said, put it in like a paragraph. Sure. Just as a memo to the board saying, you know, what you've done.
You got it, Nate. Okay, so we're gonna hold off on that. That's all I got.
Mr. Mayor, I'll ask Chief question.
Yep.
So the Jaws of Life is inoperable, what happened with the Jaws of Life?
The hydraulic Jaws of Life, we're having issues finding parts to fix the generators, so these are battery operated Jaws.
Yeah, I understand that, but, last meeting, you told us that the, Jaws of Life that we have aren't wonderful and we would like this better one. What I want to know is our Jaws of Life that we have now operable?
Right now, yes.
It is, so it's still the same situation. We would prefer to have a newer, nicer one than having this one.
Until the generator breaks again and we can't find a capacitor.
Gotcha.
It was a needle in a haystack for the last.
Okay.
Actually, our portable pump is down because we can't find it.
So who else has the compatible Jaws of Life?
Appalachian and Gainer.
How about Campbell? They got one all?
Hydraulic.
So we're ours. Are those? I'm okay with that. Fine with that. Do we have mutual aid from Appalachian and Gander and Campbell? And
two.
What's that?
And two.
And last year, how many times did we use that Jaws Life? I saw 2 extractions on your yearly thing. We used it twice. Was that with those highway things?
I don't know, I can go back and look.
Just curious, just trying to find out what the deal is. Not that, but we use it twice anyways, but generally that would be in a highway situation. Yeah.
Could be in any situation.
Could be in any situation.
Never know.
Yep, okay. Thanks.
Anybody else have anything for you? Anybody else have anything for fire department?
Any word on the roof yet?
You better do that.
Thought I'd do it for you.
Thanks.
I don't have any more pool than you do.
Yes, thank you for all the volunteers.
Yes.
Job I wouldn't want to do.
All right, Freddie?
In winter time, we're just doing ad things. We started doing Adeline, Charlotte, West Ad, trim back trees. We are starting down Front Street now for this year and hopefully do the upper half of Main Street, depending on how far our budget goes to trim trees. We repaired the east side of the bridge, of Court Street Bridge, had full new wiring in. The ledge cracked the bed, shorted out. So,
Yeah,
I did
we
all
get
that,
full
it
down.
took a while.
Is that a bridge flaw design, or is that, what keeps shorting these wires out?
Well, the salt gets down in them and then in your catch basins, it's full of water.
They have like conduit or something?
Yeah, they do, but it kind of fills up with water when the ground comes up, so it happens. It's just an act of God. I see we got another lights out down by the museum. They work on them, so I don't know what that detail is yet.
They're all electrician, is it?
Yeah, he's pretty darn good at it. So yeah, as of right now, we're just doing, the tree trimming, and here pretty soon on our off day in the garage, we're gonna, paint the garage. Get that painted, get it washed and painted up. We got a bid or quote from, Clark's for the paint for the garage. We're gonna wash it and we have a sprayer now so that we can spray the inside the garage. Clean up, get it cleaned up.
This was one the other day, I'll never paint again without one.
Excuse me?
I just one for the first time the other day, I will never paint again without one.
It's amazing how good they are.
It's maybe about 6 hours.
Saves a lot. But that's about it.
Well, I appreciate the fact that you got the black sand put up at the, mortuary gym.
You're
Looks
welcome.
beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
it's all set, all ready to go.
We got nothing else on the agenda for you. Anybody have anything for DPW?
And the Christmas trees can come out now. We started mulching them today, Chip. Did we? Okay. Did do.
We pick them up in front of people's houses, right?
Excuse me?
We pick them up in front of houses.
Yep. So.
You still on the top of the mattress, would you take that too?
Put it on your side of the firm. Ron. Put it on your side.
Anybody else have anything for DPW? We have anything from police chief?
No,
Actually, I did hear from him today.
he's doing better than he should be, and he won't be because he'll do too much. He doesn't have anything for us right now. We did have an incident, you've probably seen it in the news. Violent incident, but that's here and there. Good part is that this particular meeting made out lots of us.
Yeah. Anything from the clerk's office? All right, discussion on repealing chapter 98 of the village code. This is an 8-10.
Yeah, so actually, I would ask, and that this is probably more on, I thought we'd sent the draft of the uniform code update to Nick and Terry last month. I think we did. We were waiting to kind of push that forward to the board until we had comments back. This didn't need their comment because this is in relation to the uniform code update. The uniform code update, instead of having a standalone local law addressing unsafe structures, we just put it in the uniform code. Your local enforcement of the property building and maintenance code. And so this is an unnecessary standalone local law when we adopt the uniform code update. So I understand the confusion. Why this is like, what the hell is this for? So actually, I would ask that we schedule a public hearing for this local law to repeal chapter 98 because it's duplicative. And you also schedule a public hearing on adoption of local law number 2 for 2023 to repeal and replace the chapter, I can give you the number, to update your uniform code, 98, or not 98.
98's one you want to get rid of.
Yeah, 98 is building unsafe. Right. The update of the uniform code is an entire replacement of it, just because it's easier to do that than go through line by line to pick out the 12 different areas that the state has updated. They give you a complete model law to basically adopt.
It's just something to clean house.
This is cleaning house because it's repetitive. This one is.
What about the uniform code?
Uniform code update, you're required to update. So that is also cleaning house to take off a checkbox for the state.
So we're required to have the 12 point, you said 12 point, whatever it was, new uniform code from the state, update from the state.
Yep.
That update will cover everything that we have in chapter 98?
So, yes, chapter 98, and I mean, feel free, we don't have to include the unsafe structure procedure in your uniform code building update. I like in fact, the state, this is more of a me thing. I have an unsafe structure procedure from another client that I like. I used it. It's clear. We hold an administrative process, and then you go to court to get an order. Judges really don't like unsafe structures.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What was your name? Chris Roman. So would that cover
All the laws in the village that
Hasn't been updated forever.
Well, wait, what was that?
Like the building ground? No, this is just the building and fire and property. That's it. And it's for enforcement of code, it's code enforcement update. So anyway, the uniform code update does not have an unsafe structure procedure in it. They have a space holder for it because the way that the state acknowledges it is you have to address unsafe structures somehow. Lots of places have adopted it as a standalone. You can incorporate it directly into the uniform code itself. I've got a procedure that I like from another client that I'm just like, yep, I'm trying to get all my clients to follow it because it's very clear and consistent.
Your job
It makes my job easier.
Yeah.
That way I've got consistency of how it works for all my clients, and it's just, to my mind, honestly, a better process. And we've used it successfully in several places. Again, judges really like it, and it also it gives you guys the cover. Because some places have just an administrative process where you don't go get a court order. You just do it all here. And like, I'll tell you, from a CYA perspective, I want my clients, I'd rather you have a court order saying, sure, go tear that house down. Solves a lot of problems.
Do we have, I've read 98, I'm trying to remember, do we have that in 98 right now?
That is chapter 98. Yeah.
Do we have the court order and all those updates in it?
I don't recall off the top of my
Yeah, I
head.
just read it, but I forgot how.
Yeah, we might, but it's, if we can keep it, if you want to keep chapter 98, I can remove the unsafe structure procedure from the draft building code update that we have.
Can we see that before we do it?
Yeah, can you email that to me with the language that it's gonna replace?
Yeah. Yeah, no, and that's I think just my own internal goof up with your code office as to, I thought we sent it and asked, hey, do you guys have any comments, things that you'd like to the code office?
We must not have, because we asked them last month if
Yeah.
they'd seen any of this, and they said they hadn't seen it. Nobody in this room had seen any of that.
Yeah, and that's, yeah.
Can we see all that, and then we can?
Yeah.
Thank you. Is that right, Mike?
Timeline on the code that we have to adopt that.
Normal local law process, the state didn't want it done by the end of last year.
That means pretty much sufficient. Well, I'm just staying in line with how fast they do things, that we got 3 years to do it.
Yeah, probably. There. So we're gonna put that one on.
Yeah.
Next thing, payment of bills.
Okay.
Everybody get them? Look at them.
Anything.
I went through it.
You good with it, Mike? Will we pay the bills?
Probably for Brandy.
Okay.
She's got-
She's good.
we're not gonna pay the bills.
We're paying the bills, Fran.
Okay.
We got a motion and a second. You got any questions on it?
Nope, I have no question.
Rusty?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
Fran,
Yes.
Charles,
Yes.
yes. Minutes?
I got a.
I got it right here.
Real quick,
Tedious.
she done it really fast after the meeting, and I can't remember since then. Yeah, that I don't remember anything being wrong with them.
I don't either. Like you said, we had them 2 weeks ago, so.
Motion to approve the, minutes.
I'll second it.
Okay. Any comments on the minutes? Let's look at it.
Yeah, there was one thing that probably doesn't matter, and it was about, a motion to go out to bid for the, street sweeper, and it was kind of, got what we're gonna, we can change that around, so that's gonna be, okay,
Yeah, bids out.
okay. That was just a weird, weirdly worded. It was a weird version. Okay. Yeah, that's.
Yeah, we had accepted the money back from the county, right?
Right, yeah.
We did report.
And we haven't gotten to it.
We're not getting that.
We're not good.
All right, let's vote on the minutes. Rusty?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
Fran?
Yes.
Charles?
Yes.
And yes. Trustee reports. Rusty, again.
No report.
Laura?
So we got awarded a grant, from the state for, the, CRS related, climate change related things. So it's $125,000, and that's great news. And then another grant that we were going out for, the 33.6 or 36 point something thousand, we did not get that. So we got the larger one, and that one hires us, the consultant, for the most of the work at the beginning, and then the consultant does a lot of the work and trains people, and yeah, it's a 5-year thing, and everybody gets trained, things get hooked up, we get rolling into the program, and then we'll be on our own, but it would get everything rolling for us and all this set up. And then, so the grant that we didn't get awarded, we got a really positive denial letter, and they encouraged us to come back to meetings in February. So that's really great news. So we could potentially see some other action from that in a different way for the next round. So that's all good stuff. Even though we didn't win it, the second one is still looking good. And then OHPC is going to have their meeting on Thursday. It's a light schedule. There's no applications on there, but they have other work that they're going to complete.
They gotta remember to turn the computer on.
Yeah. And also maybe give them the Wi-Fi password, or whatever the passwords are, just in case there's something.
Yeah, they,
Getting on the.
I just logged them into there. So
Yeah,
I just have to remember to come to it.
yeah.
To-do list.
I forgot last time.
Person need to do it too much.
Thursday's created then. My kid cheer.
Oh, and then, yeah, so January, I think it's the 23rd. All right, so, yeah, so it's a Monday. Yeah, it's a Monday, January 4th week right there. That looks like the 23rd, right? At
It's
10 o'clock. It might say 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
We're gonna have our first, task force meeting.
Oh, okay.
And that's gonna be over at the Hubbard Auditorium or the legislative room, or whatever's gonna work best.
Is that open to public?
It's reserved for us. Oh, is the meeting open to the, oh, sure. Sure. Come meet everybody and, yeah. So that'll be our organizational first meeting. And then they'll continue every month, same fourth Monday. Same place. All right, that's it for me.
Rob?
I see the cherry picker at the police station, I mean, they're doing the ice jams on the roof.
Yeah.
We've been lucky so far this
Supposed
winter,
to
I
be
just,
soon. That lift has been here for like
yeah,
a week now.
I see it there, I mean, we're gonna get hit with something.
And they're gonna miss all the 50-degree weather and go
Yeah.
below zero.
Yeah.
I mean, it just seems like a no-brainer to get that up there as soon as possible. I understand the guy fell ill, but it's a huge liability for us right now.
But the lift is there, so that's a good sign.
I'm not doing it. Anything over 6 feet, I get nauseous.
Yeah, I'm not going there. Anything else?
That's it.
Okay. Grant?
Well, as I mentioned before, cemetery committee really appreciates the, DPW getting that lights on the, chapel. The Mildred Truman grant, has to be completed by July, so, we already have the force, contracted to do the parking area, and, Joyce Hunt needs to, schedule a time with, Fred to, talk about the pad in front of the chapel, so we can get that done by July 1st. But other than that, we're all set.
Charles?
I do not have
Mike, can I throw one thing in now?
Oh, I guess.
Like how when
You said you had no report, but whatever.
Tell me what you want.
Part of this process.
I would very much like, if and when our new grant person is on board, I would very much like us to research and go find a grant for the potential of a Jaws of Life. I have a bunch of things to say about that, and a bunch of things to say about where we are budgetary wise this year, next year, or the year after that. This idea that we just have ARPA money to throw around, we don't. And this idea of, we've never done this, we tried never to do it here, to borrow, borrow, borrow. So I want us, and since this doesn't appear to be something that has to be, like the Scott Air Packs that had to be, we have, by the way, we have 4 interior firefighters for our 25 Scott Air Packs, but that's another story. Anyway, I would like us to get our grant writer looking for that particular thing.
Yeah, that seems like a good grant.
Yeah, that's just exactly what kind of thing we're looking for. Thanks for looking.
DEC has $1,500.
What was that?
DEC has a $1,500, if it's about, you have a volunteer force.
Yeah.
DEC has one.
1,500? You're going to 40 grand. But I appreciate it.
Well, the amount of help.
We need 38.5. We need 38.5 now.
Communications, we got a Christmas card from HOM thanking us for lights on the river.
Did what I could.
Yeah, the bridge is beautiful.
Yeah. And we got official, maybe you guys all got this too, we got official communication from New York State DOT that they're gonna repave every road in the village
Of course, when,
this summer.
yeah, when is,
Yeah, well, they say they're gonna do it in the season, not during Strawberry Festival and not July.
Hopefully nighttime, because that's a lot.
And nighttime, yes. And they don't plan on closing the roads.
Are they taking the brick out?
No.
It doesn't say if they are or not.
They took it out with the patches.
I know.
Told me they were taking it out when they were gonna repave with the
That's how-
patches.
They do that.
Oh, it is.
That's a big
It's a
thing.
good.
Is Reed still doing Main Street? How's that work?
I have no idea, because they don't have that part of Main Street houses.
Because there's gonna be a
Which should have been
touchy situation there.
Suez. From this point of Main Street down.
Curb to curb. And they gotta go full depth.
And the state doesn't have a highway.
I know, that's what was my question there, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Right past Main Street.
But see, here's the thing on that. The state, from how I gathered this from Paul Reeves, the state wants them to go curb to curb. But if the state did it, it was just gonna be a mill and overlay.
Very minimal.
Correct. Well, yeah, since the contractor came in there and destroyed the brick, they're gonna make them go curb to curb and new subgrades and everything.
I think that says that on that thing we got from the.
Yeah, but it's still under negotiation with Veolia and the state of New York. It's gonna be a big.
Put a Band-Aid on it.
Let me just tell you right now, in my experience, if they just put a Band-Aid on North Avenue and Main Street, it's gonna be the same spot we're at now in 2
I'm
years.
so happy to move my store off of North
Yeah,
Avenue.
I don't blame you.
Every time those trucks come on, big window shakes like crazy.
With all the tractor trailers, we get through there.
Put
Well,
on
they're
the
gonna
brakes.
do something.
Yeah, but which I'm thinking the state's gonna do the minimum,
Probably.
just go mill and overlay.
Like,
If we ever did a box out in this village, we'd be in trouble.
At least we got a letter.
Huh?
More than we normally get.
just showing up on a Friday night, oh yeah, by the way.
Yeah. Or they just don't do anything, these big fouls. All right, mayor's report. Not much besides the fact that our next meeting, no, not the next meeting. Our next meeting is January, it's supposed to be January 16th, but it's actually the 17th.
That's our holiday, right?
Yep.
President's Day.
Yep. So that February meeting, February 6th, me and Fran will be at NICA. So, you guys want to move the meeting, or do you want to have it without us?
Maybe not that easy.
We'll be back to 7.
But it was
Seven.
20.
A lot faster without.
Yeah. So we've got a vote to do that.
I propose we move the first meeting in February to Tuesday the 7th at 7 p.m.
Second.
Okay, any discussion on that? We'll vote. Rusty?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Yes.
Fran?
Yes.
Charles?
Yes.
And yes.
February meeting's gonna be February 7th.
Instead of the 6th.
And then the same thing, I mean, just for information, but the 20th is President's Day, so.
Another holiday.
21st. So our next,
Like 18.
so our next like 4 meetings will be Tuesdays.
After that,
Doesn't help my bowling schedule.
that's what you wanted to hear.
Yeah.
Tuesday night, huh?
That'll get on, you're right. That's why I get subs.
Just call me, buddy.
Every Tuesday from now on, I want somebody here.
Keep the second place. All right, they're bowling
On
tonight.
the
without me.
holidays.
They're bowling tonight without me, they'll survive. What do we got? Public comment.
Maybe you might.
Got anything?
I got nothing today.
No.
Got nothing.
No, we'll adjourn.
What's everybody for, comment?
What do they have on there?